What's your name?
Theodore Christian Roland.
Oh, fancy.
Try not to pollute my answers too much with your commentary.
Oh, yeah. I'll try that.
My reasons for coming here are perfectly pragmatic. I would have gone to San Francisco State um, had I known that my brother had a spare room available in time, which of course I did not because he didn't tell me until 6 months later. And then I needed to stay close to the area because my mother has a chronic illness that I need to help her with occasionally, which is not as big a deal as it sounds. Um, it's just a thing that happens to some people sometimes.
What inspired your interest in philosophy?
Um, I took a class with a man named Stuart Campbell and quickly realized that he was one of the worst people I've ever met. His lectures were sedated, probably because he was sedated, because he also had a chronic illness that caused him to be on painkillers constantly. Um, and he was very uninvested. His assignments were unpointed and broad. When it came time to the end of the semester, he gave a take-home test in which we were supposed to break out an argument into premises, support, conclusions. It was essentially a rhetoric final. It wasn't. I haven't come across philosophy taught quite the same way. I think it might have just been easier for him to teach it as a rhetoric class than a real philosophy class. It was critical thinking. It was philosophy 3 at the Santa Rosa JC. A friend of mine and myself took the test home, as was our wont, and we broke out the arguments individually, or we broke out the arguments together into just math. We said premise is this and the support is this and that, which was maybe in less than an hour of work total, and then we wrote our papers separate. We disbanded and said, all right, well, I have this sort of direction and you have this one, so we can talk about it, but whatever. And we wrote them separately and we turned them in. And about a week later, I got a call from Stuart Campbell, and he accused us of plagiarism. Because apparently, despite the fact that it was a take-home final that had no instruction whatsoever, apart from do this, we weren't supposed to work together on it. And so he failed us on the final. And I failed the class. I think I got a D because it's the final. And at the JC, if you get a D, you have to retake the class. And so later, actually, I spoke with another student of that class, and apparently her and her boyfriend for the entire semester had only been writing one assignment between them and then turning in 2 copies. And he never said a thing to either of them. So really, I think he was probably just a giant asshole. I don't really have much support to the contrary. I apparently have a lot of support for that position. I wish that he would have convinced me otherwise, but I don't have any proof of that. Anyway, so the next semester I took a class with Mike Balboa, and despite the fact that it was an evening class and I was sleepy the whole time and I didn't really want to be there, I really loved the material, and I really loved the way it challenged me and made me think about what I'm writing in a paper, because up to that point I was very used to writing arguments that were very bland, very broad, based on very little evidence. Mostly they were descriptive, and then turning them in and getting A's on them, even though I didn't really have that much invested in the work itself. And so I really loved the way that philosophy challenged me, and I came to love reading it and love writing it more and more as time went on. And now I'm, 5 years later, a lot of procrastination, but I'm heading towards the end of a degree in the field. The instruments, or at least the way that I see music, playing music, is attempting to establish pure relationships between myself and some other being. Be it another person who I'm playing with, or be it with playing music that I enjoy. I'm trying to establish a further relationship with that external object by experiencing it directly, or and honestly, playing instruments between two people that understand each other is the closest thing I think that you can come to um, a pure shared sensory experience, apart from maybe sex, would be the next thing up. And that would only be because it's sex is more base, and while it requires a certain amount of physical intuition, it doesn't require nearly as much intellectual intuition as playing music does with another person. Um, so it's more pure, but it's less involved, I suppose I would say, depending on the type of sex that you're having. I would say that while the department doesn't have the resources to extensively provide me with what I want to do with the field, um, my instructors, the professors that I've had relationships with, have encouraged me in every way that I see reasonable to learn and discover more about what I want to do and what I want to be thinking about. Having personal relationships with them means that they understand me on a level that I don't believe that I would have gotten at San Francisco State University. I feel better mentored by instructors that I've had maybe 1 or 2 classes with, than by any instructor that I could have had if there were more people in my department, or if there were more of them. I feel like I would be the hate child between Martin Heidegger and Bertrand Russell, for the fact that Bertrand Russell wanted philosophy to be more than it was, and I respect that greatly, whereas Heidegger wanted to transcend philosophy. His criticisms of the tradition, I feel, are reasonable, but what I think is more important about them is that it necessitates, to consider his arguments necessitates thought about what you're doing as a philosopher. And I think Russell had a similar strain in him, despite the fact that they ostensibly hated each other's theories. So I feel as though the traditions that they followed, each of them, should be respected and synthesized by everyone who considers them. And to reject a single tradition is foolish and a disrespect to the annals of methods that you could be employing to do philosophy better. And so I would have 2 mothers, and they would hate each other. I feel like hatred and suffering are incredible, malleable tools by which to use, not hatred in a normative sense, not a hatred of a certain people or even necessarily of a certain person, but a hatred of the way that things are. You know, it's not object oriented. It's necessitation oriented. I believe that suffering is a deep rooted human condition, that by which we create the most beauty in the world, because it's reflective of the fact that we can only understand so much of the world. So much of it will be concealed from us permanently. That our intent to know, our intent to learn, can never truly be satisfied, which causes us a disparity in our mind, because we want to be creatures that understand, and we want to be creatures that learn, but we know that we are impotent in that way. And then furthermore, to have, by hatred I more mean impassioned. So even I wouldn't even, like, hatred was just hatred is just sort of a word to use for this disparity between, say, Heidegger and Russell. But what's more important is that they didn't, I don't think they hated each other. I think that they were impassioned against one another. They disagreed, and that disagreement caused them to argue more, which means they were eventually arguing better by practice. And so suffering is the way by which we understand ourselves, and hatred is the way by which we improve ourselves.